Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. So welcome to a quick discussion on a topic that gets misremembered a whole lot when it comes to the different versions of Tactics Ogre, and especially one particularly funny example that I just like to bring up here. So, as per usual, occasionally you'll hear in comments and things disparaging the newest version, mentioning something along the lines of like, oh no, there's no multi-classing, it used to be so good, and there was this skill system, and the skill point system was so good and so fleshed out, and then like completely forgetting what any of those actually meant. So let's go ahead and cover one of the funnier examples here and kind of go from there. So let's go ahead and say you just acquired the Buccaneer. That's kind of fascinating. Canopus can become a Buccaneer. So let's see, what kind of weapons does he get? He gets his hand axes, he gets his swords and all that kind of thing. And if we go over to guns, if we were to have them over here, technically he'd be able to equip this rimfire. Okay, so in order to use this, we just simply go over to our skill menu and not be able to learn guns. That's fascinating, but maybe it's just a level thing. It's okay. You know what? Maybe we'll get it earlier if we switch over to a Fusilier and fascinating. Okay, he can't become a Fusilier either. So, how on earth is he going to be able to use this this gun? How difficult is it to actually get him to pull this trigger? Well, then we get into a fun little thing over here, where, technically speaking, if we were to somehow get the skill onto somebody else, we could potentially cross-class that skill over to him. What does that necessarily mean? Well, it essentially means that if we, for example, take this random generic soldier over here, we go over here, we put him into Fusilier, we'll then go ahead and have him learn Fusils, so we'll go down here. Oh, well, looks like it's going to be freakishly expensive, so let's go ahead and fix that little situation, go down to our cheats, and go ahead and give them infinite skill points, just kind of for the hell of it here. So let's see, where do we have infinite skill points over here? Okay, there we go. We got our skill points. And we'll then back out of that thing, back out of this menu, and then we'll go right back in, and then he'll be able to go learn his skills. Alright, so we'll go ahead and learn our Fusils here, except he needs the crossbow skill first. Okay, kind of weird, but alright, whatever. So we learn crossbows, then we learn Fusils. Basically, the idea is that you're supposed to train crossbows until you get up to Fusils, though there's no, rank requirement, so it's just like a 50 extra point cost for no apparent reason. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and assign his Fusil skill here, and just for the hell of it, we'll go ahead and give him Anatomy. Actually, there's no point in giving him Anatomy. So, thing is, now this guy has it, but Canopus still doesn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and switch him over to a warrior here and have him do that kind of thing. So now he's a warrior, and he can't use his Fusil skill anymore. Alright, fantastic. So we'll go over to our weapons, and then we'll see that we need a certain weapon for this. So, just one moment here. Alright, so at this point we see that we need the Ogre Blade, but oh, that's a bit of a shame, we don't have the level requirements to actually use this Ogre Blade, so now we switch him over to a Dragoon so there's level changes, except we can't because we don't have the class marks for it. Okay, so we need to track down Deneb's shop, and or, you know what, let's just go back to the cheats again. Alright, there we go, now we have, genuinely obtained just 99 class marks off the drop of a hat. That's kind of fascinating. Anyway, so we switch him over to a class that's leveled up enough to be able to go equip this sword, and so then we go take this sword, and then we apply it to this guy, and then there we go. Now we have an Ogre Blade on him. Fascinating. We'll go ahead and give him some additional equipment, just kind of to give him something to protect himself a little bit, and then we'll well, I guess we'll also cover one of those funny little things that gets forgotten about this version too. Anyway, so we'll now go into Farampa Wildwood. You might be wondering, what does this have anything to do with this guy being able to pick up and fire a gun? Well, yeah, for some reason this is just the way that they went about handling some mechanics. In terms of cross-classing, there's there's very, very few examples of actual genuinely fun ways that it worked in PSP. Like, it was technically there. Like, you could give your warriors and fencers and stuff like that Rampart Aura, or at least the lowest rank of it, as in the one that usually isn't worth a slot by itself anyway. But either way, you had a few things that you could technically move around, and you could access some skills, like some of the passive buffs, a little bit earlier. Generally speaking, it's always been part of the Ogre series for units to be able to go and play, essentially play all of these things, kind of sticking with the unit being the unit in question, so to speak. That is the weirdest possible way to put that. Essentially, when it comes to these units and whatnot, usually they're expected to stay within their role, with exception to something like the Lord, and in PSP, the Lord was also bizarrely limited in terms of the kinds of stuff that it could do. Alright, so next thing, just another funny thing that gets forgotten a lot. You know how You know how the She ring just kind of makes you teleport? Yeah, you gotta activate it at this point, which means you have to give up a turn for any of your movement items to do stuff, which means that you're giving up on the massive stat bonuses that items give you in a relative sense this time around. I know, I'm harping on about a lot of things that have a tendency to get missed about this version, but it is what it is. Anyway. So at this point, they'll go ahead and do their thing. That guy might end up getting himself knocked unconscious. That's all right. We'll just get him back up on his feet in just a moment, since we have our overpowered main character over here. We'll go ahead and make some use of that in just a moment. Anyway, what we want to do is get this guy back up on his feet at some point. We actually don't want to do it just yet, because for the time being, he actually won't be getting his turn right away. Again, another one of those things that's a reborn change. When you revive a unit there, they instantly get to move. So, seeing as he won't get to move and we have a different move in the meantime, we'll just go ahead and just insta-delete one of these birds, I'm thinking. There we go, just go for one of them kind of deal. Actually, you know what, we might as well just kind of just immediately go in and delete all of these guys, why not? Alright, so now that we're finally in a position where hopefully this guy will get a chance to actually take his turn, maybe, kinda sorta, there's a decent chance he'll just end up getting shot, but he is about to bleed out, so we'll go ahead and get him back up on his feet. Give him that 36, kind of one of those quiet things that also got boosted in the remake, where Resurrection became a thing that serves to get you back up with a certain percentage of your health and MP, whereas this time around it just kind of gets you up with a certain amount of health and, well, no MP, because he's an MP class. He doesn't get any TP, which means no resurrection into finisher type of turnarounds. Anyway. Alright, so we see that this archer is going to delete him every time that he acts, so we'll just go ahead and stab him real quick, and then we'll attempt to get him back up on his feet, as you do. This guy will do his thing. We probably are better off just going and putting a debuff on him or something. Go down this list here, see about putting him to sleep for the time being, and then seeing if he manages to actually get a turn anyway. By the way, if you're wondering about why my graphics look a little bit jacked up right now, apparently I'm using the wrong version of PPSSPP for the HD overhaul for the PSP version, so yeah, it just kind of looks all jacked up on my end. Anyway, that's fine. Once I figure out how to cause the Linux version to downgrade, I will end up making this look a hell of a lot better. But anyway, it is what it is. So, now that that guy's sleeping, we'll go overhead and go over here, and then we'll go ahead and Ogre Blade into this sleeping unfortunate rando over here. So, they went ahead and body swapped, and now we've lost all of the equipment that guy's carrying, which is fine, because we'll just go ahead and stab him anyway. By the way, picture is not really relevant, but just to point this out, when it comes to the unit that does the Ogre Blading, the original unit is completely lost. You don't get any drops from them, and you don't get their drops, so to speak, and additionally, you can't recruit them back into your team. That gets asked a lot. I just figured I'd just go ahead and bring that up here. There we go. Now that he just suddenly woke up in a weird sleeping nightmare staring at his own unconscious body, we'll just go ahead and carry on here. So, we end up getting the warrior class leveled up, and now that that's happened, we can actually go ahead and do the exact opposite. So what we have is now a warrior birdman that's capable of using fusils, right? But we still have not taught that to Canopus. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let him die a few times. So Alright, so now I've gone and let him bleed out 2 other times, and now we're going to let him bleed out 1 more time in order to finally get our nice tasty corpse for Canopus to snack on. Because, I mean, it's very difficult to just kind of sit him down one day and say, hey, look, you got a finger. If you were to bend it, like you were doing that crossbow over there. I mean, granted, the shooting mechanisms are different, technically speaking. At that time, they had more of a kind of grippy mechanism than a finger pulley mechanism, but still, you get the general idea. Just like, it wouldn't be so difficult to just kind of sit him down, have a little bit of a quick talk over, here's how your finger works, but that's okay. A little bit of cannibalism, it is what it is. Now, I should point out, the reason that it has to be a Hawkman is that, technically speaking, Hawkman and human, despite both being hit by the anatomy bonus, are classed as different races for the purpose of the scavenge mechanic, wherein you can basically do the whole FFT crystal thing in order to go transfer somebody's stuff over to somebody else. Now, basically, this means that, yeah, the Ogre Blade is the only way to actually make this happen, because you would be able to transfer that human unit into a mostly human unit, and, you know, then kind of just go from there. So we go ahead and retreat at this point, if it ever decides to respond, because it's busy playing the music. Anyway, so at this point, we see that Mr. Gunny is dead, so we go down to Scavenge, and then hopefully we actually have some, yeah, we have 4 silver. If you don't have any silver, bit of a shame, you won't be able to do this. Anyway, so we go ahead and transfer over those skills to Gunny, or from Gunny over to Canopus, and yeah, then Canopus is finally able to use those guns that he was hearing so much about. Now, for context, for those that don't know how difficult it is to get the Ogre Blade, especially in this version, this save file would not have been able to actually do it. So if we go ahead and go over to a different one here, hopefully one that's, whatever, we'll find one of the test files and go from there. But basically, when it comes to this, please don't get into the infinite loading loop. Okay, good. Okay, so when it comes to actually getting a hold of these things, in order to get an Ogre Blade, what you need is the 4 Wind God weapons. Well, actually, no. It's in this version you can just go through Coda 2. So at the end of Coda 2, there is a chance for the Ogre Blade to drop from Roderick. So basically, that is Palace of the Dead, floor 116, where you fight the boss there. So he has a chance to drop this, and then additionally, if you wanted to go back and get additional Ogre Blades, you also had them drop from the Blackmoor fight. So in order to get them to drop from Blackmoor, bear in mind you would use up this sword every time you did this. In order to use them up from Blackmoor, you would need to, for example, go get the Notos. And then from there, you would need to go get the Zephyros, which is somewhere in here. There we go, the Zephyros over here. The Euros, which is over here, and then the Boreas. So essentially, to get each of these, most of these are going to be rare drops in Palace of the Dead, unique drops, I believe, for most of them, and then additionally, they also actually forgot to mark some of them as unique. Like, I believe technically each of these are classed as unique, but they're not noted as unique. I forget exactly how that goes, but these are noted as unique in the One Vision mod. But, for example, to get some of these, like the Notos is in a Flesh Golem towards the end of, I think it's like in the 90s of Palace of the Dead. So it's not only a chance drop, it's behind a very late game enemy that also has to be exercised. It's just like, there's a lot of steps required to get these. The Zephyros is just available over in Floating Ruins and all of that, San Bronza. But again, you know, just kind of a random drop you get up there from one enemy. So either way, once you get all of those, you then go fight the guy that's holding the Fire Crest, and then that has a chance to drop more Ogre Blades for you. Obviously, the Roderick method is way easier, but, you know, it is what it is. That's how you end up getting the other Ogre equipment. So that's all well and good, but this is just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that ended up coming up with the original system. It's not that it's not that it wasn't, you know, that it didn't have cool stuff to it, but the original system was kind of, the idea was there, but it wasn't quite, like, done all the way, you know? This is why you see a lot of things that were improved with it, come One Vision and whatnot, and, you know, come Reborn and all of them. Or, like, for example, another one of those kind of egregious examples was that you can get a Necromancer back in Chapter 3, and man, that's cool, you get this new class that's for PSP, and you're gonna go do all this cool necromancy stuff, and then you look over his skills, and oh, he has necromancies, he knows them! And then you actually go and use the guy, it's like, where are his necromancies? Where did they go? Well, this is actually kind of a threefold problem, because on the one hand, well, A, he doesn't have the necromancies. B, if he did, you can't use the necromancies because they cost reagents in this version, so you had to buy body parts in order to sacrifice them in order to cast any of their spells, which, you know, are not there currently as we're looking at it here. Additionally, you might notice that he doesn't have Meditate. If we go over and look over at Meditate here, we see that it's a skill that they can technically learn, or that they can technically have, but they can't learn it. So if we go down here, they get Animate Dead, they get Condemn, like this, every version, it's just weird to have this here. I know it's just kind of for AI use only, but it's just funny that it's always there. Anyway, so you can get, for example, your expand mind and your channeling and all that kind of thing, insight, but you won't get access to meditate unless you do the scavenge thing here. So basically, you get a Necromancer that's functionally speaking just like a worse version of your existing casters by this point, and by the time you can get access to those Necromancies, you can get access to Necromancers normally in Palace of the Dead. You can just go and hire them there, while being able to get access to their spells, while being able to go and get ammo for their spells as well. So until then, you basically just have a wizard that just decided to go around LARPing as Jason Voorhees one day. I don't know, but anyway, I just thought that this was a funny little topic here as far as how cross-classing actually used to work. In most cases, really what it all boiled down to for these different classes back in this version was that at the very start of the game, you would kind of just go down your list, and it's like, oh, they've leveled up one class, and they have access to a few skills that, for example, the level 1 wouldn't. So then you would transfer them over back to that level 1, and suddenly, level 1 archer with strength and 4 or something like that. So they get a bunch of bonuses. Essentially it's this mix of trying to get a hold of the gear and skills and whatever else that you needed along the way here. In general, it was kind of in retrospect, it's fun to screw around with, but thinking about it in a logical sense when you're going through it the first time, it makes no sense. It's kind of like the FF8 problem, where it's like, there's cool ideas here, but God, this is weird to think about, Anyway. So that was about that. So yeah, let me know if you have any other weird cross-classing horror stories, because I'm sure others have plenty more of those. But usually it's that Necromancer or trying to teach Canopus to use a gun that end up coming up. Alrighty, so how was this ability here supposedly downgraded in the remake? Oh no, that amazing system from before where we could spend, countless hours going and attempting to cause one unit to learn one skill. Well, this was supposedly downgraded by means of the fact that if you were supposed to be able to learn a skill as a class, you just automatically learned them, and if you wanted to do the weird cross-classing stuff, you could then use the Ogre Blade to then essentially transform any one unit into another unit. So, for example, right now we have an Archer with Lament of the Dead and Fearful Impact, if that was kind of what we were going for here. Essentially, it allows you to instantly steal a unit and transfer whatever skills were on the kind of permanently on that unit at that time, and move them onto something else. So, I mean, there's not really much reason for concentration to show up on an archer, but, you get the general idea. This actually could be potentially useful for example, putting concentration on a rune fencer for a lot of the debuffs that they get off their weapons, or, for example, one of my favorite combinations of this is actually combining them onto a ninja, which, frankly, we would have to then move this onto a ninja, one of the downsides of moving them onto a birdman. But you can transfer a lot of skills that you wouldn't expect to be able to use otherwise. In fact, come to think of it, this is weird. So before you actually couldn't necessarily equip certain skills. In this case, he actually is able to move the skill over. He just isn't able to use that weapon. So technically speaking, he gets axes and swords and whatever else. He just can't technically use them. I wonder if there's a way to cheese that somehow. Anyway, so yeah, that's just kind of what you do with all this stuff. All right, moving on. Y'all have yourselves a good one, and take care.